Say Levi. Levi. Where are we at?
Colorado, and that's steam train from around the 1800s.
Durango Silverton narrow gauge railroad.
Listen to him, not me.
Listen to him, not me.
Durango was a railroad town from its very beginning. The Denver and Rio Grande founded the town in 1880 as a base for operations in southwest Colorado and their long-awaited 45-mile push into Silverton. The Animas Valley area offered the railroad a relatively hospitable climate and an abundance of the coal they needed to fire their locomotives and to fuel the smelter that was already planned. The town site had good access in all directions to allow future expansion of their rail lines. Officials of the D&SNGRR borrowed the name Durango from the Mexican town of the same name. Mexicans had earlier taken the name from the Spanish town Durango. General William Palmer was fluent in Spanish, and his original plans had been to connect the D&SNGRR from Denver all the way south to Mexico City, so the name chosen was probably related to that idea. The distinctive, beautiful bells on the Durango Silverton narrow gauge locomotives were cast from a mixture of brass, bronze, copper, and tin, a combination that offers durability and quality of sound. The whistle is used to signal the locomotive's movements to the rest of the train crew and anyone else in hearing range. In the following description of the most common signals, long whistles are designated as a long line and short whistles are a period. The grade changes abruptly from crossing Highway 550 from 1% to a steady challenging 2.5%. The 6.5-mile climb up Hermosa Hill and onto Rockwood is not only steep, but it is curvy, which increases friction between rails and wheels and compounds the drag of the coaches behind the locomotive. During this climb, your locomotive will remain at full power with a noticeable change in its sound. The fireman has been anticipating this change in grade for the last 2 miles, getting the boiler full of water and the fire burning white hot.
This is the Animas River. Is it still operating?
The hydroelectric Tacoma power plant was built in 1905 and began operations the following year. 2 of the 3 generators at the plant are original. Transformers originally intended for Tacoma, Washington were sent here with Tacoma Hydropower stamped on the crates. The local supervisor thought the label referred to his power plant and the name stuck. The first recipient of electricity from Tacoma was a mill in Silverton, and the town still receives power from here. Tacoma is capable of producing 8 megawatts of electricity per hour, enough to supply 8,000 homes. Currently, there are studies underway by the current owner, the large Colorado utility Xcel, to consider adding a new, more efficient generator to the plant. Tank Creek water tank is the first of 2 watering stops for the train on its way north to Silverton. After the train's long push from Durango, the tender is almost depleted and will require as much as 4,500 gallons of water. The engine crew normally oils around and inspects the locomotive at the stop as well.
Did you see it?
Chipmunk. You see a chipmunk?
What? Hey, Dale! Oh, I see him! He's going over. Hey! Chip! Come here, Chip! I see you. Oh, I got food. I ain't got no sunflowers though, sorry. Okay.
I think we should back up.
The original Needleton water tank was a stop for the train on the way to Silverton until the mid-1970s. Though the tank does not hold water, the structure is stabilized and could be adapted at some point in the future. Water is dispersed from the body of a steel tank just north of the wooden tank. The Silverton Depot was built in 1882 as a temporary structure because the townspeople and the Durango and Rio Grande Railroad could not agree on a suitable permanent location for the building. Some current Silverton residents observed that if they are trying to agree on a site today, the 2 parties would probably still have a hard time agreeing, and the same temporary building is still standing. However, on Friday, September 12, 1975, the Silverton Depot was badly damaged by an explosion that occurred just before the arrival of a train. Gratefully, no lives were lost. The blast did extensive damage to the south end of the building and was triggered by a fuse that burned for only about 7 minutes. That left little time for the perpetrator to escape. But escape he did. Despite the largest criminal investigation in San Juan County history, no one has ever been charged with the crime and no motives are known.
Start going. Okay.
Thank you. See you later.
Okay. So now we are off. We're gonna get lunch.
In the summer of 1860, Captain Charles Baker led a party of prospectors who had gathered in Oro City, near present-day Leadville, into the San Juans in the valley that would soon become known as Baker's Park. Exaggerated tales of gold and silver that circulated through the newly established mining camps in Colorado lured Baker and his group to the San Juans, even though most of the territory there belonged to sometimes hostile Ute Indians. Sporadic violence continued between the miners and the Indians, and Charles Baker was killed in 1871 by Indians somewhere near the park that bears his name. According to legend, the name Silverton was not derived from the commonly assumed abbreviation of Silver Town. Reportedly, the name was created when a miner was asked whether there was much gold in the area, and his response was, "We ain't found any gold, but we struck that blasted silver by the 100-ton." For many years, the Animas Valley threatened derailments because the track was poorly supported on the often soggy valley floor. That whole portion of the line was replaced with heavier rail and increased ballast by Durango and Silverton narrow-gauge crews during the 1980s. Ballast in railroad terminology refers to gravel or crushed rock that is placed around and under wooden ties to prevent their shifting when rails are stressed by the load of heavy locomotives. The gravel also allows water to drain away from the ties. So how narrow is the narrow gauge? Narrow gauge rails are 36 inches apart, while standard gauge rails are 56.5 inches apart. How much fuel and water does a steam locomotive need for one round trip? The locomotives use between 800 and 900 gallons of fuel oil and 10,000 gallons of water for a round trip to Silverton. In contrast, the coal-burning locomotives use about 6 tons on average.
Want me to film the same?
Yeah, we're gonna film right now. There's no one there.
The high bridge, 190 feet long, is made of steel girders with heavy wooden deck. While the locomotive is over the river, the fireman and engineer alternately open the blow-down valve to clear sediment that accumulates on the bottom of the boiler. The hot white mist shoots dramatically from the sides of the locomotive, and on sunny days, rainbow can magically appear.
That's what it said in that magazine. Oh, I got sprayed.
So why is narrow gauge used? Inspired by the use of narrow gauge while visiting the UK, William Jackson Palmer was attracted to the versatility of this gauge to accommodate steeper grades and sharper curves through the mountainous regions the railroad would encounter. The reduced capital expense to build narrow gauge equipment was also a large contributing factor.
Down there it looks like Arkansas water.
So you might be asking yourself, how long has this railroad been taking passengers on excursions? Well, those involved with the railroad were always aware of the spectacular experience it presented, and they prompted these scenic opportunities very early on. In addition to its purpose as a freight railroad, it was officially prompted as a scenic attraction July of 1882. Stony Pass was the favored way into Silverton before the arrival of the railroad in 1882. The road led from Del Norte, then one of Colorado's larger banking and commercial centers that had once been in consideration for the state capital. The route followed the gentle grade of the Rio Grande River until changing dramatically as it reached the Continental Divide at 12,500 feet. The descent into the San Juan mining communities was steep and treacherous.
Ooh.
Denver and Rio Grande surveyors considered a route to Silverton through Del Norte and over the Continental Divide at Cunningham Pass, not far from Stony Pass. It would have been the most direct path from Denver, but the prospect of maintaining year-round access at such an elevation dissuaded them. Hollywood discovered the narrow gauge country of southwest Colorado in the early 1950s. A Ticket to Tomahawk, which included Marilyn Monroe, Walter Brennan, Ann Baxter, and Rory Calhoun in its cast, was filmed using the railroad and featuring spectacular locations around Durango and Silverton. While the setting for another movie, Across the Wide Missouri, produced in 1951, was Montana, most of the film was actually shot in the San Juan Mountains. That movie cast included the legendary Clark Gable and Ricardo Montalban. The year after saw 3 more films made in this area: Denver and Rio Grande, produced by Paramount Pictures, Viva Zapata, made by 20th Century Fox, and MGM's Lone Star. More were to follow, notably Around the World in 80 Days, How the West Was Won, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. All these films brought attention to the area and contributed to increased passenger loads on the Silverton branch. Because of the influence of Hollywood in the early 1950s, you might be asking yourself, how many passengers does the Durango Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad carry per year? Well, in 2021, nearly 220,000 passengers rode the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad. We are coming to the end of our round trip on the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad. If you are ever in this area, I highly encourage you to do this, even if it's only on a one-way ticket. Die with memories, not with dreams. And we'll see you next time.